Welcome back, recovering loveaholics, to Confessions of a Loveaholic. I am your host, Emmy Hernandez, and I have a pretty incredible guest for you today. Her name is Marilee Grace, and she is an author, specifically of this beautiful book right here. For those of you who can't see, it's called Right Swipe. We're going to be talking about that. She is a speaker, certified life transformation coach, and she is on a quest for teaching women about love with her book. And in her book, she talks about her crazy 15-month chaotic adventure on the dating apps following her divorce from a 29-year marriage. Ooh, juicy. We want all the tea, Marilee. Marilee is a self-love enthusiast and encourages women to learn to love themselves first and foremost. Yes, yes, yes. She is a facilitator for online divorce thriver writing circles and helps women to develop clarity, understand their creativity, and discover the healing power of writing about their divorce stories. Marilee, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So excited to have you. And we're going to go right in it because we have so much to discuss. So since you were married for quite a while, tell me a little bit of what has changed from when you were dating in your 20s, leading up to your first marriage, to now divorced and dating in your 50s.
Oh, Lord, everything. In one word, everything. Back when I was in my 20s, you actually would meet somebody face to face, or you might have somebody, a friend, set you up on a blind date. But to me, dating apps are blind date after blind date after blind date, because we are putting ourselves out there. And I'm doing the air quotes because I absolutely hate that terminology. But you create this profile, you work hard on it, you try to pick your best pictures. You try to, in a brief couple of short paragraphs, tell everything about yourself that you think somebody would want to know. And that's not really the way that we did it back when I was 20. You went on a date, maybe went out for tacos or whatever, and you had a conversation. And then you might call and talk on the phone. Then you might have another date. When you're on the dating apps, you're totally on your phone or your computer, and you are just reading these bios. And then you're having text conversations. So you're not seeing a face, you're not seeing mannerisms, you're not picking up the social cues, which I think that is huge, is you're not getting the social cues, and you're not even knowing if you're really talking to a real person, if we want to be honest about it. Because there are a lot of bots on the apps. There's scammers, there's catfishers. So you don't even know if it's a real person on the other side of the screen. So that is really kind of, that is undaunting. And then you get addicted to it because, we're kind of addicted to our phones, and you get addicted to that swipe. You really do. And it's like, if you have your notification set so it pings, you constantly are looking, and you're like, oh, swipe, 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 swipe. Do I swipe right? Do I swipe left? What do I do? And it's such an artificial way to meet somebody. And we try to make it less artificial with the conversations. And then eventually, if you can get on a FaceTime with them, a video chat, then it becomes a little bit less awkward. But dating is awkward to begin with. Online dating just notches that up, amps that up a few notches.
It really does, Marilee. And, this is important to discuss. So for those of you who haven't listened to my very first episode, I'll give you the punchline is I met my husband on an online dating app. We met on Bumble. So I'm a huge, huge fan of Bumble. We'll go into why Bumble versus the other apps here in a second. I'll actually tell you now. It's because on Bumble, you can match with a whole bunch of different people, but the woman has to, quote unquote, give permission to be contacted first. And there's a specific training that I walk my clients through on how to do this. So there's less bombardment and less harassment on Bumble, guaranteed, than any of the other apps. Okay. Because no one can just send you a message. And that is, from a woman's perspective, like a huge sort of advantage. So that's why I met him on Bumble. However, I was also on Match for a little while, and I met an incredible man who I call my prep soulmate on there. So, I got really good at writing bios, the long form and then the super short and the captions on Bumble. And I write bios for my clients on Hinge, and the pictures you choose and how you choose to write about yourself is super important. And 100% agree, Marilee. This whole term, again, in quotations, putting yourself out there, I call BS on that, because that's not what we're doing. It's not, we're not cattle, right? We're not putting ourselves out to auction.
Exactly.
Like, this is not what we're doing. What we are doing is putting out the frequency of, like, this is who I am, and and putting out the frequency to the universe, to God, to everything, so that you can know these are my values and my boundaries, and this is how I radiate to the world. Okay. It's not about going out and looking for someone or being the pick me girl. And you may or may not meet your person online. And I have clients who are like, oh, I don't know if I want to do the online dating thing. It's like, it's cool. We're still going to put out your profile, because we don't know where you're going to meet your person. And putting out your profile the right way, which I call enlightened dating, is how you show your commitment to yourself and to the world, and the frequency of, I'm serious about this and I am looking for a right match, not just a hookup. So tell me more about these chatbots that you encountered, and like some scammers. Like, I've heard some crazy stories. I've experienced some, I've heard some from clients. Like, tell us some more of those stories, please, and how people can avoid them or catch the red flags early on.
Okay. First, I want to say I absolutely love everything that you said, because, oh my goodness, if I would have known that, that would have helped me so much. It truly would have, because, that frequency and kind of if you want to say, manifesting it and what you're wanting to draw back into your universe. And, we don't have enough bandwidth, enough emotional energy to juggle hundreds of men. I did it for the sake of research after a certain point. I didn't enter into it thinking, oh, I'm collecting data. I entered into it really for a silly reason, because I wanted to belong in the group that I was with, the women's group, support group. They were talking a lot about the dating apps. And so I said, okay, fine, I'll do it. I'll give it a shot. And I didn't understand that there were bots on there until I was talking with one gentleman. I do talk about him in the book, and in the book, his name is Dean. And he says, oh yeah, there's bots on here. And I said, like Russian or like robots? And he says, yeah, there's Russian bots, there's bots from all over the world. And what they're doing is they're trying to collect your data. They might be trying to scam you, all sorts of different things. And I said, well, how do I know that I'm talking to a bot? And he says, oh, I guarantee you've talked to bots. He says, the ones who immediately respond, you text something and boom, they have a response. He says, that's a number one indicator that they're a bot, because they're just waiting. It's programmed so that when you enter a response, they enter a response. And he said, have you ever had somebody respond something that you go, that's weird, because I don't even understand why you asked that question. It has nothing to do with the conversation or what I just said. And he said, so if the communication, if the conversation is not linking together, if it's you're on this track and they're going way off track in bizarre ways. He said, also watch for things like repetition. Especially, you might have somebody that you're talking with and you're like, that sounds vaguely familiar. He says the conversations are pretty much canned conversations, that sometimes they go off of a keyword that you might say, and then it goes into a question, or it might be just a script that they have. And no matter what, that's the script that they follow. And I did actually find that. I had somebody that presented himself as one person, and then the next week same picture, different name. And it was the exact same conversation with one small little twist. And so I called him out on it. And I said, last week your name was blah, blah, blah. And the only difference is, and I stated, I literally verbatim typed in what he had responded to me. So if you are on the apps and you are thinking this conversation is vaguely familiar, start really taking note of some of those conversations. And I even screenshot them so I would remember. And then when I was collecting data, I did lots of screenshots and wrote lots of things down. But when it's, oh, this conversation, it's kind of like a deja vu. It's not deja vu, it's a bot.
I love that, Marilee. It's not deja vu, it's a bot. It's a pre-programmed bot. I love
Mhm.
that. And I want to, so thank you so much for all those tips. For those of you listening who hadn't even considered this, or who are maybe going to start your dating journey, and especially for those of you who are in the 50 plus category, this is heightened. This is like 10x, 20 times the chances for this to potentially happen to you. And we've seen the stats. We see it on 2020. We hear horror stories. I'm not here to terrify you. Neither is Marilee. But the more
Right.
aware you are of certain things, the faster you can turn something down. Okay. The faster you can block these people. And that's one of the things that I want to teach women on here on my series is stop being such a good girl. So often, many of us are like, I don't want to hurt his feelings when, he said something awkward and weird, but I don't get it, but I'm going to continue the conversation. No, no, no. This is a complete random stranger. It might not even be a human. Block immediately. Okay. Too many of you, hear me now, are considering conversations for way too long and wasting your time. And this is not the time. Like, I love that you were collecting data and that you called him out for the sake of data, right? Because now we have the cool
Right.
screenshots. I love reading this. Go get her book, by the way, Right Swipe on Amazon. And in normal world with my clients, that's an immediate block and move on, right? Because why waste our time? Marilee, I want to switch over. This is along the same lines. In chapter 9, I love your title on here. What's up with WhatsApp? Can't we just hang out here for a while? Tell us about these men that try to switch us over off the apps and why they're doing that.
Okay, so WhatsApp. Lordy, lordy, lordy. I had WhatsApp on my phone prior to the dating apps. And I only did it because my son was in Belgium for about 6 months, and it was a way that we could communicate without having to pay. I didn't have to figure out time zones and be up at 3 o'clock in the morning to talk to him on the phone, and I didn't have to pay astronomical fees for a conversation. So that's the only reason. That was my knowledge of WhatsApp. So the first guy that wanted to get me onto WhatsApp, I was thinking, why would we go to WhatsApp? We can communicate right here. So I quickly did a Google search. Why does somebody want to get me on WhatsApp off the dating sites? And boy, Google it. It is just a mile long of they're wanting to get you off of the dating apps, because when you're on the dating apps, there's people that monitor that and they can block those accounts. Well, you know what? They're going to get a new account and they're just going to call themselves Fred instead of John. And they're just going to copy and paste all of it. But at least you slow their roll a little bit. When they get you onto WhatsApp, they'll tell you, oh, I don't check this very often, and it's a hard, it's the flow is weird, and I get an immediate notification on WhatsApp. And I said, I get notifications all the time on the apps. I know if somebody has left me, because that little 1 2 3 that appears on that appears on my end. Doesn't it appear on yours? I'm just saying. And I got very bold after I started learning about the scams and I knew what they were trying to do. So they will usually suggest WhatsApp within the first, 2 or 3 sentences. They might go so far as to having had a back and forth exchange, like maybe 5, but it is within, they've barely taken a breath and they're suggesting WhatsApp or like Google Hangouts. I think this is what it was called. I'm not for sure if it was Google Hangouts or whatever, but always suggesting you to go to an outside app so that the moderators can't moderate, so that you are more vulnerable. And those apps are encrypted, and they're good for the purpose that they were meant for, but they're not good for leaving to go to have a conversation with somebody on the dating apps. That's a prime indication that they're up to no good.
100%, Marilee. And I'm so glad that you're talking about this because it happens more often than people realize. And sometimes it's innocent. Rarely is it innocent. For the most part, I would say red flag, red flag. I wish I have a little red flag. It's somewhere in my closet.
Yeah.
Major, major red flag. And even if it's not WhatsApp, okay, ladies, I have my clients actually encounter this all the time, and they're actually not potential scammers, but they are potentially toxic or controlling men. So let me tell you this, okay? Very often, if you're on the dating app, the apps have now added where you can have video calls directly in the app for a reason, okay? It's for your safety. So if a man asks you for your phone number so that you can FaceTime, you can do whatever it is that you want, maybe you do want to have an online video call, which I recommend. A healthy man is always going to respect that you say, because they might do it innocently and like, hey, you want to have, can I call you? And you can respond with, hey, actually, I feel more comfortable if we have a video call on the app. You know, what time works for you? A healthy man is going to 100% respect that and continue the conversation and say, oh yeah, you know, how about Thursday at 5? What's your availability look like? Set a date. Any man or any bot or whatever, man, woman, whatever, goat that pushes back and says, no, because whatever, or why are you afraid, or why, any other response other than, sure, I totally understand and I get that, let's do that, an immediate block. Immediately.
Absolutely.
Do not, they are going to try to manipulate you. And by default, if they're manipulating you, you haven't even met yet. I see so many of my clients feel guilty. Again, this is why we need to get rid of the good girl syndrome. They're like, Emmy, but I don't want to hurt his feelings. You don't even know this person. Whose feelings are you hurting? Like, I'm more concerned about you and your safety and your mental well-being than a random freaking person. Okay. So
Right.
that, like, Marilee and I are gonna like harp on this until the cows come home. Like, do not fall for these traps. And I want us to shift gears here a little bit, because we can talk about the dating apps and the red flags on there forever and never be done. But I want to talk about the real reason you wrote this book and the real quest that you're on, because it's not about training people. About the dating apps are just sort of like how we currently date in sort of modern love society. But I really want to shift gears into the importance of another topic.
Okay.
Marilee, when did self-love and learning to love yourself become a priority, and why did it become a priority for you?
Oh, that's a little bit of a story there. I had very powerful women in my life, 4 of them, who would tell me, you need to learn to love yourself first. And I'd be like, yeah, fine, whatever. I'll get around to that. You know, I don't need that. And I avoided that because self-love can be scary. Self-love, we're told, is selfish. You've got to put everybody, absolutely everybody, ahead of you and your needs. You know, if you're a mom, your kids come first, and you're a wife, and your husband comes first, and your parents come first, and the little boy down the street comes first, and you are the low man on the totem pole. You're so low on that totem pole, you are eating dirt. And that's the way we live. And so I kept having these women talk to me about self-love and say, you just need to figure it out. And I kept thinking, I don't know how to figure this out. If somebody would just guide me and tell me, I mean, I'm a good student. If you tell me to do ABC, I'm going to do ABC, and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to say, I'm ready for more. What do I do next? But truly, self-love was something that I had to do on my own. I had to figure it out because it is truly individualized as to how we get there. Okay. I don't have a cookie cutter formula that says if you do A, B, C, and D in 4 weeks, you're going to magically be so in love with yourself. I wish it that were that simple, but I do have a process and you have to work the process. And when I finally got off the apps, I was exhausted. I knew I needed to write the book. I didn't have enough energy to write the book. I was really feeling quite low about myself, um, because I had realized I had fallen back into some of my prior tendencies that I had when I was married. And I thought, gosh, I've done so much work over the last couple of years, and here I am. I'm back to square one, but I wasn't back to square one. I'd just taken a couple of steps back. And I looked at it and I thought, okay, I've got to figure this out. And I didn't actually start writing the book. I just let all of the data be from about October to December. And this would have been December of 2022. I was going on a retreat to Costa Rica. I was a little bit nervous. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know, how is this going to change me? I knew it would be a life-changing trip, but I didn't know what. And so I just set out with the mindset, I'm going to be okay with whatever happens. I'm just going to accept it all. I'm going to drink it all in, and I'm going to be better for the experience. So I went to Costa Rica. I found out that I had a room all by myself, had not planned on a solo room, had planned on having a roommate. And, even though that's uncomfortable when you're with somebody you've never met before, I thought that's what I need. I need some, girl time, and maybe we can become besties. I don't know. Maybe she has the secret to this self-love thing. But what I found in the depths of the jungle, and I truly was in the depths of the jungle, the place where we were staying was at the heart of the jungle, is I was absolutely 100% alone for the times when I was in my room. I didn't have to feel any space with chatter or girl talk or, friendly conversations. I could get real with myself, and I journaled and I journaled and I journaled and I cried, and I took, a bath looking out over the jungle, and I just sat there with the water up, to my nose. And I just thought, I am worth it. I am so worth it. And I started to ask myself the question, these four powerful women in my life, what separates me from them? And I would ask myself, what would Jen do? How would Jen treat herself in this situation? How would Jen talk to herself? How would Sarah handle this? What questions would Sarah ask? Would this bother Sarah? And I went through these four powerful women, and I really started to think about, how would they respond? How would they act? How would they be? How would they live in their skin? How would they love themselves? And I started doing that. And I started one small thing at a time. I figured, I have eaten this elephant of self-loathing one bite at a time. I'm going to eat this elephant of self-love one bite at a time. And what's one thing that I can change? And the first thing that I decided that I could change was stop looking at myself in the mirror and talking negatively about myself, stop sticking my tongue out at myself, stop telling myself I was ugly and I was fat. And I would never tell that to my best friend. Why was I saying those words to myself? And so I really started looking at myself in the mirror, more than just to put on my makeup and then, dodge it. And I would just look at myself. And I wouldn't say anything at first because I couldn't say anything, but at least I wasn't saying, gosh, you're fat. Gosh, you're ugly. Man, your nose is big. Oh, your hair looks messy. I didn't say any of those things. I just drank myself in. And then I got to the point where I would say a compliment to myself. And I went back on the compliments that people have given me in the past, because that's truly all I could go on, because I couldn't see it for myself. And I would look at my eyes and I would say, oh, you have pretty eyes. Or, oh, do you have a nice smile? And I would go off of that. And eventually I would do that every single day. And if I started looking at myself negatively, or if I was having a crappy day and I would just be thinking, I just want to eat, or I just want to whatever, I want to crawl back in bed and not face the world, I would make myself look at myself in the mirror and say, you're going to be okay. And you have pretty eyes. You're going to be okay. You have a pretty smile. You have okay. You're going to be okay. You have friends who love you. And I started doing that, just reaffirming to myself, speaking out loud to myself. Now, my dog thought I was crazy, or that I was telling him he was going to have a treat, but that was his problem. My problem was I was learning to love me just as much as I love him. And I got to the point where I would look at myself and I would go, oh, looking nice today. Oh, my hair's doing good things, or it's a little bit crazy, but it's kind of fun. It's whimsical, and I then got to the point where it was not just liking myself, but loving myself. And then I would do one additional thing, because the thing is if we can change one thing, and if we can concentrate on one small thing, I'm not talking about losing 50 pounds. I'm talking about one small thing. I avoided eating something that makes me feel like crap today. And I'm going to do that again tomorrow, because I did it successfully today and I can do it the next day. And I take one day at a time. We change the trajectory of our life. We don't understand that one small thing today in a month is going to be big. In 6 months, it's going to be really getting big. And then by a year, we've changed a big chunk of our life by that one small thing. And I started just by looking at myself in the mirror and not sticking out my tongue and not saying bad things about myself. And then that's when I realized that's the ending to my book, because I didn't know how I was going to end the book. Here I am talking about the dating apps, this guy, Hank and John and Fred and everyone. How do I bring this full circle and just not go, stay off the dating apps? It's going to ruin your life, because I don't think it has to. And it didn't ruin mine. It opened up my eyes, and it opened up my eyes to the fact that I needed to love myself first and foremost. And once I'm able to love myself, I'm better at loving my children, my parents, my grandbaby. I'm a better friend. I'm a better employee. I am a better everything. And it's not selfish. It's self-care. So that, in a long nutshell, is how I developed that and how I just kind of figured it out.
I love this so much, Marilee. Thank you so much for sharing. Very similarly to you, when I started on this journey with wanting to attract my soulmate, my coaches very wisely told me that we needed to work on self-love first. And I was like, wait, what's that? What do you eat it with? Like what?
No,
what
I
like,
want to do that.
yeah, like
So
I didn't even know it was a thing. I wasn't even smart enough to get to the point of thinking that it sounded hard, because I was like minus that. It was not something in my awareness at all. And then I realized what it really was. And it was absolutely life-changing to go through that level of healing. And I can tell you right now, for those of you who are listening, you're like, oh my God, like that sounds scary. Yes, it is. We're not going to lie to you, but it's worth it. We can, right, Marilee? It's worth it.
it is so worth it.
Let me tell you why. Okay. It's worth it, at least in my opinion. And this is why I tell people to not be worried about the dating apps or meeting someone in person, because here's the truth of it all, is that I met the man that kidnapped me at a personal development seminar. Okay. And I met the love of my life on a dating app. So am I here to tell you your soulmate is on a dating app and only controlling narcissistic men are at personal development seminars? Absolutely not, because that is not enough data to have that conclusion. The conclusion is, however, who I was. Okay. And the version of me that met the man that kidnapped me, I can tell you, she was very wounded, very, very wounded, and had no concept of self-love, and did everything for this man to pick me. did everything to allow the manipulation, did everything for this man to tear me down. I allowed it because I didn't know any better. Now, by the time I came around to the dating apps, and I was on them for about 7, 8 years before I met Matt, the thing is, there were multiple different versions and iterations of me until I got really good at what I really wanted. And I didn't attract Matt until I got really clear on my values and who I was and how much I freaking loved myself.
Yay,
Right?
that's exactly right.
Yes. So it wasn't until then that I was able to truly attract the type of men who valued that, the same values, who valued me, who valued that frequency, and who wanted to co-create a partnership in life to magnify what I had already created, not tear it down. And that, my lovelies, is the difference. So it's not about the apps. It's not about going to the bar. So people get so caught up in like, how did you meet him? Like, oh, well, we need to have a different conversation because it's not about
Yeah.
the how or the where. And on that note, Marilee, I love that your book is called Right Swipe. So originally, right, it was about the swiping right and the apps. Can you tell us more about what does this mean for you now? And please tell our audience, what is the right swipe movement? Maybe you don't call it the movement, but I'm going to call it the right swipe movement.
Well, I am the OG right swipe girl. That is the name of my business, and I rebranded my coaching around Right Swipe Girl because I am a right swipe girl. It means that I right swipe on the things that are valuable to me. I right swipe on the conversations, the people, the things that nourish me. And I left swipe on the other things. I left swipe on the friendships that are toxic, or the conversations that are going down a rabbit hole. It's like I no longer engage in those. So to me, right swipe is allowing in the things that bring you joy, that nourish your soul, that show you that you love you and show others that you love them and that they matter in your life and that they are a priority. So I tell women, you can become a right swipe girl too. And it has nothing to do with swiping on a man. It has to do with swiping on you, your needs, your goals, your values, your dreams. And it's not selfish. It's not a me. Look at me. I'm awesome. It's this is who I am. And it is being authentic, being okay in your own skin, being better than okay, being phenomenal in your own skin, bringing that glow, that vibe, that energy, that emotional intelligence to everything that you do. And it's a state of being rather than an action.
I love that. Right swipe girlies is a state of being rather than an action. Absolutely love that, Marilee Grace. Marilee Grace, can you tell us how people can get a hold of you? How can they find out and get more of your wisdom?
Well, my business is called Right Swipe Girl, and I'm at www.rightswipegirl.com. I also have a presence on Facebook. It's also Right Swipe Girl, all one word, and Instagram at Right Swipe Girl. I'm working on getting my TikTok going. I have a TikTok that's a personal TikTok that I kind of gravitate to, but I've got different ideas about things that I want to do with my Right Swipe Girl TikTok. So watch for that this summer. I've got a little bit more time on my hands during the summer to be able to focus on just how I want to craft that and what kind of a community I want that to be. It will be for sure authentic. We're going to put some fun into it. You're going to find yourself laughing. I might make you cry because, sometimes I hit those heartstrings and go, this is the reality. Be true to you. You don't owe those men anything. You don't owe other people anything, but you owe yourself to be authentically you. And once you're authentically you, the rest falls into place.
That's beautiful, Marilee. Thank you so much for being such a wonderful guest today. I hope everyone was taking notes and downloading this wisdom and these nuggets from Marilee Grace. Go check her out. Also, don't forget, go get her book on Amazon, Right Swipe, A Quest for Love by the beautiful Marilee Grace. Thank you again for being with us. We'll be in touch soon, my lovely. And remember, recovering loveaholics, you deserve safe love.